sin wars against us. It wars against us, it wars against man, and it wars against God. Remember? Mm-hmm. And then in Romans 8:7, it says that this carnal mind will not submit to God. So the carnal mind, sin, the carnal nature is unredeemable. Mm-hmm. And sin not only moves between humans. Remember, we saw in Ephesians 6:12, there are rulers of darkness and there is spiritual wickedness in high places. So we said that sin not only moves around human beings, but it moves around this entire creation. And that's why God has to eliminate it. Mm. But God is going to eliminate it in a very fair way. So God is going to use judgment to eliminate sin. Oftentimes we think of the word judgment as a personality trait or somebody disparaging. Oh, she's judging me. Or condemnation, like I'm always feeling condemned by her. But that's not what it means at all biblically. They're actually legal terms. And God's justice system parallels ours, or actually ours parallels God. So we're going to look at God's justice system and then and compare it to ours. And we're going to see how God is going to move against evil. OK, mm-hmm. So the first thing I want to do is Fee, if you can get 1 John 3:4 for me. Sin has more than one definition. Last week we said sin, according to 1 John 5:17, is that which is unrighteous. It's unrighteousness, but it is also something else. Fee, can you tell me what it is in 1 John 3:4?
And this is the NIV version.
Okay.
Everyone who sins breaks the law. In fact, sin is lawlessness.
Okay, so it says sin is lawlessness, or sin is breaking the law. So that means that the definition of sin is not just unrighteousness, but it is also God's word for crime. It's breaking the law, spiritual crime, right? For instance, right now, if while we were talking, if let's just say that Pia, that she was sneaking over to Rebecca's house and she was tipping in the back and she's going to take her wallet, it would be an unrighteous thing to do, but it would also be a criminal thing to do. Mm-hmm. And if she were caught, she would be held accountable. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sin means unrighteousness, doing an unrighteous thing, but it also means that we will be held accountable for it because it is also breaking the law. It is also crime. That's important because sometimes we think of sin as meaning God's way to destroy our fun. Sin means I hate you because you have blue hair, or I hate you because you have an earring, or I'm angry with you because you're eating ice cream at 2 a.m. It's sin. It is none of those things. It is unrighteousness and it is crime. That's it. And it is completely impersonal. Mm-hmm. So when we sin, we enter into God's judicial system is what happens. So I want to look at that. So if Pia, would you go to Romans 5:18 for me?
It says, so then as through one trespass, Adam sins, there resulted condemnation for all men. Even so, through one act of righteousness, there resulted justification of life to all men.
Okay, what I'm going to pull out of there is I'm not going to worry about the second half because we're not there yet. So it's saying through one man's sin, Adam, judgment came upon all men. And I'm going to quote out of 5:16. It says, through one man's offense, judgment came to condemnation. Judgment came to condemnation. So there was sin, judgment, condemnation. And like I said, it's not the condemnation like, oh, she's condemning me, everybody's putting me down. They're all legal terms. And we're going to do a parallel. Okay, in our world, we have crime. God's world, sin, same. In our world, if we got caught for our crime, we're going to go before a judge and we're going to go into judgment. In God's world, we're sin, we're going into judgment. That means that our action is going to be evaluated and a judgment is going to be pronounced on it. And the word in the Greek is krima, if I'm pronouncing it right. So it's man, crime, God, sin. Man, judgment, God, judgment. Man, after you, if you are found, if you've been judged and you have been found guilty of that crime, you're going to be a convicted criminal. But in God's world, it's the same word as being condemned. The word condemned is katakrima, and that means there's a sentence attached, that you've been judged and now there is a sentence. It is completely impartial. It has nothing, like I said, to do with disparaging you or putting you down. It is strictly a judicial term. So once we sinned, we entered into God's legal system. Sin, judgment, condemnation, just like ours. Crime, judgment, conviction. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good, makes sense.
Yes.
Okay, now here's where we get a little different. In man's system, once you are a convicted criminal, you're going off to prison. And in God's system, once you are a condemned sinner or condemned criminal, you're going off to hell. That's the ending. It's the same thing, the same process. To be condemned to hell is the same as to be convicted to prison. A distinction is, in our system, we only manage sin.
Yeah.
We corral it, we put it away, we put it in a prison, we put people away from others so they can't hurt them again. But it never ends. We're going to get a new generation and a new generation and a new generation. The evil will never end.
Yeah.
God ends sin. Man's manages sin. That's what prisons do. They manage. So God is going to use judgment to end sin finally for everyone.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay. Let me move on. Now, let me see, Rebecca, if you could get Psalm 9:8 for me, and Sean, if you can get Romans 2:6 for me. These are just some of the characteristics of that. I want to kind of highlight what we just said.
Psalm 9:8.
Mm-hmm.
He shall judge the world in righteousness, and he shall administer judgment for the peoples in uprightness.
Right. So what God is saying is, I'm going to do this righteously. There's not going to be any partiality to the left or to the right. No one is going to get a favor. I'm not going to tip my scales one way or another if I love you more or less. I'm a completely equitable judge. And then in 2:6, Sean.
Okay. Just 6?
Yes, just 6.
Okay. I'm in King James. It says, who will render every man according to his deeds.
Okay, so God's saying, I'm only going to judge you for what you've done. Not for what your group has done, not for your skin, not for your nation, not for your denomination, not for any of those things. I'm only judging you for your actions. So you're going to stand before God in equity, accounting for only your own crimes, spiritual crimes or sins. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Now, this day, it's already... let me see. Who's Jay up there? Does anybody not want to read today? Don't you and me like you want to be anonymous?
It's Jill.
Jill. Hi, Jill. Okay, Jill. You done said it now. So Jill, get Acts 17:31.
Hold on.
No problem.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, John.
Heard that, Jill.
I know.
I know. I'm saying I heard it. I'm like, I'm in agreement with you. That's how you get it.
Okay. For he has set a day for judgment, for judging the world with justice by the man he has appointed. And he proved to everyone who this is by raising him from the dead.
Okay, so we're just going to take the first part. God's saying there is a day for judgment. Our court date is set. No one's getting out of it. It's not random and it's not philosophical. It is set. Okay. Now, I'm going to add one more thing to this. I'll read this one. This is scary. Just so I'm telling you ahead of time, this is scary, but there's good news after. God is so adamant about the elimination of sin that he has a fifth step. Man is crime. God is sin. Man is judgment. God is judgment. Man is conviction. God is condemnation. They go off to prison, and then God's condemned sinners, they go to hell. But hell's not the last step. God is going to do a comprehensive elimination of sin. So I'm going to read out of Revelation 20, and I'm going to tell you the very last step when it's really done. Revelation 20, I'm starting in 10. I'm going to skip a few verses. Skip down. It says, the devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet are. They will be tormented day and night forever and ever. And then he said, listen to this. I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and they opened books. Another book was opened, which is the book of life. The dead were judged out of the things which were written in the book. So we are all, it says, according to their works. So we're all going to be held accountable. But here's the part I want you to know. Death and hell gave up the dead who were in it. So hell is not the end of it. This is it. Death and hell were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death. So God is going to not just keep people in hell, he's eliminating it. So in the Bible, there is a second death. It is not just physically dying, there is a second death, and it is comprehensive. And at that point, evil is completely annihilated.
Onward.